All right, y'all, we got another one by XO Speaks. This is why they're so defensive right now. I wonder what this could be about. Shout out to him. I will leave the link to this video in the description.
The second you say white people are competing in ways that they didn't have to before, all of a sudden people hear something that you never said. And that misunderstanding is a reason why this moment feels so tense. They get defensive and hear it as nobody ever worked hard or everything you have is fake. That's not what's being said.
I was born dirt poor. Roaches in our food, mattresses on the floor, eviction notices taped to the doors, kind of poor. My parents, their side hustle was beating me and my siblings bloody. I missed more meals than I can count. When we did eat, it was ramen, canned foods, or whatever we could steal from the gas station.
We go out every day and we bust our f***ing asses because nothing is handed to us. And there will be nothing handed to us. You get your own channel, you get your own history month, you get your own special programs to get you into college. Now I need to get back in here and get to work because ain't no program gonna pay my rent.
The real point is—
Wait, hold on. These white dudes that I just saw are absolutely delusional, for one. And the thing is this, no black people are out here saying that just because you're white means that your life is going to be so much better, so much easier. We're not saying that privilege guarantees success for white folks. All I'm saying is, and most of us are saying, is this: there's no barriers holding you back to being successful. The color of your skin isn't going to be the reason why you grew up poor and why your parents used to beat on you for fun and why you grew up eating ramen and bullshit. It wasn't because you're black. It wasn't because you're white. What it was is that you just had fucked up parents and you was born into some messed up circumstances. It wasn't a system against you. Black people have a system against us. You know, name me a system that's against white people.
Is about how competition worked before, who got access, who didn't, and why things fell off now that those barriers have weakened. When people hear the word competition, they usually imagine a fair race. Same rules, same starting point, and same access. Everybody lines up, and whoever performs the best or works the hardest wins. But that image doesn't match how competition has really played out in America for most of its history. I'm not saying that white people didn't compete, but they competed primarily with other white people. They competed within a system that already decided who is allowed to participate and who wasn't. Entire groups of people were either excluded completely or restricted so heavily that competition was never actually fair to begin with. If you were enslaved, you weren't competing. If you were legally barred from education, you weren't competing. Exactly. If you couldn't own land, couldn't vote, etc., you were not competing. So when they say white people have always had to compete, that's not true. They competed inside of a system that dramatically reduced the number of competitors. That's not real competition.
Weird. I never.
Yeah, I like how he broke that down beautifully, because here's the thing. If we just take sports, a lot of white folks, before black people started playing sports in the NBA and the NFL and things of that nature, they didn't have to really compete. You didn't really have to compete until black people started to play sports alongside you. Then you realize that, oh shit, in order to get this position, I'm going to have to be better than someone who don't look like me. That's what it looks like to compete. So you never really had to compete. Let's go back to when a lot of white immigrants started coming back to this country. Not coming back to this country, but coming to this country for the first time, like Italians, like the Germans and people of that nature. When they first got here, they were offered things that they didn't have to compete for. You didn't have to compete to get a slice of that land that they was giving out with the Homestead Act. The 200 plus million acres of land. You didn't have to compete with African Americans to get that land. It wasn't a first come, first serve situation. Like if a black person gets there first, he gets it. Or if a black person applies, you have to tell us something, show us something, do something that proves to us that you're more worthy and capable of dealing with this land than that black person was, because we was excluded from it. So a lot of those people's descendants are still benefiting from that generational wealth that they was just given in the 1800s. So yeah, y'all ain't really have to compete for much, man. And let's not even talk about redlining. Shit, if black people was competing for some of those houses that y'all was just being able to buy because you were able to get a loan, then that's real competition. But you didn't have to. Only people you had to fight to get inside of this house for was people that looked like you. It wasn't me. Not in the 70s, not in the 60s and 50s. You didn't have to compete.
Never had anyone
I
giving
be
me a
rambling,
goddamn
bro,
thing
my
my
bad.
entire life. But it's so funny because if you're poor and you're black right now, I would say the entire fucking country and world is catering to you. But it's weird. We forget about 80% of the country that is white trash,
Right.
that has no sympathy, gets no empathy. They will never make it out of where they came from.
Yeah.
They have no shot and no one cares about them.
Only people who buy them.
Wait, did she just say that white people are poorer than black people in so many words? Like the 80% of white people in this country are doing bad? I hate shit like that, bro. I hate shit like that. Out of all of the white people in America, how many of them are living below the poverty line? And then compare and contrast that with African Americans. I ain't even got, look, my eyes is closed, but this got to be false because the simple fact, why is the unemployment rate for black folks double? But let's read this. White American poverty rate 7.6%. Oh my God. Look at the poverty rate for us black folks. 18.4. 7.6 is almost 8. Double that, that's 16. This is 18.4, bro. They want to be victims so bad. I don't know what this is about. Why do y'all want to be victims so bad? Nothing is happening to you. They ain't got a law in place that prohibits you to move in certain neighborhoods. They ain't put no laws in place that said you couldn't get a patent. They didn't put any laws in place that said that you had to be in this neighborhood. They didn't, bro, come on now. All this crybaby shit y'all got going on got to stop.
Lie of white privilege are two people. Wealthy white people who erroneously attribute their soft lives to their skin color as opposed to their wealth, and struggling non-white people, obviously this country has many, who erroneously attribute their struggles to their skin color, even though those struggles are the same struggles that struggling white people have.
What they're saying only sounds reasonable to people that don't understand what white privilege is. I'm not about to go on a long rant about this because I already made an entire video on white privilege.
Quick side note, at least once a day, I get a comment or an email asking, how do I do this YouTube thing? How do I make reaction videos? If you're interested in making money on YouTube and not just arguing in the comment sections, I run a private YouTube growth group. We do weekly calls, live channel audits, and you get to see how other creators are making money, plus how I got this channel to where it's at 37,000 today when it only had 3,000 in October, and how I plan on making this channel go to 100K before the end of the year. Link in the description.
Growing up poor means that you lacked money. White privilege is about how race affects how institutions treat you, not how much money your family had. Those are two completely different ball games. Poverty does not equal racial disadvantage. A poor white kid and a poor black kid both can struggle financially, but one is far less likely to be seen as threatening, one is more likely to get the benefit of the doubt, and one is less likely to be punished, surveillanced, or stereotyped because of race. Another thing, privilege is about what didn't happen to you. White privilege is not your life was easy or you never worked hard. It's you weren't assumed criminal because of your skin color, or your race wasn't used as evidence against you, or you weren't punished extra for existing while poor. Privilege isn't about the pain you had, but it's about the pain you didn't have to carry in the first place. In the US, opportunity wasn't uneven by accident. It was designed that way. Slavery didn't just exploit labor. It removed black people from the competitive economy entirely. Redlining didn't just shape neighborhoods. It prevented generational wealth. Segregated schools controlled who got credentials and who didn't. Immigration laws openly prioritize Europeans while restricting everybody else. And that's only scratching the surface, because you have other things like Mississippi appendectomy, periodigo, black codes, environmental racism, etc. The list goes on and on.
Convict leasing, you know, everything under the sun. And then there's recently a video that just, a recording that just appeared out of nowhere of a white lady who is a teacher or something like that, saying that these black kids are too stupid to realize that they go to a bad school. And she's under review right now, not immediately fired. That's some white privilege for your ass right there, because if a black person did some shit like that, shit, probably fired for less. You get what I'm saying? You know, just because you're white and poor doesn't mean that the system was against you. That's all that he's saying. You can be rich and black and the system can still be against you. You drive in the wrong neighborhood in your little $200,000 Mercedes Benz and you're black, you can get pulled over still because you're black. Ain't nobody pulling over no white man for driving in a predominantly white community in a $200,000 car because it doesn't fit their narrative. It doesn't fit the description they're used to people like you seeing. So, yeah, I'll give you a better example. I went to court with my little brother, right? White trash and that motherfucker all over the place, getting slaps on the wrist, coming in there dressed like they didn't give a shit or understand the severity of the situation. Meanwhile, you got black dudes in there suited and booted, ties and everything, feeling the need to go above and beyond to get some treatment like they're actually human inside of this court system. And then you can see a white dude in there looking raggedy and he get a slap on the wrist, and then they throw the book at the black dude who came in there presenting himself like he was taking the matter seriously. I witnessed that with my own eyes. You go to these courts, you don't see number black people and Hispanic people in there. You very rarely see white people in these courts. And that's why they don't allow you to bring cameras inside of them. Yeah, man. So all this bullshit they talking about, man, it's falling on deaf ears to me.
And some of these things are still happening today. I've said that before and I'll keep saying it. And all of this is piled up generation after generation. It limited how many people could realistically build wealth or access power. And when fewer people are allowed inside the race, the people already inside it don't have to outperform as many others in order to succeed. Now, that doesn't mean that every white person benefited equally, but it does mean that the system reduced competition in ways that benefited them directly. And because those advantages were built into the system, the people benefiting from them barely noticed they existed. This present moment feels so different to so many white people because the barriers that filtered out competition have weakened. I'm not saying they disappeared, I'm not saying that they reversed, and I'm not saying that they went away, but they've weakened enough to matter. Now minorities can access education legally at scale. Black women can enter jobs that were historically closed off to them, and information is less tightly controlled by elite institutions. Credentials are more profitable, and hiring practices face at least some level of public scrutiny. Not all the time, but they're starting to face more. Again, I'm not saying that it's disappeared completely, but I am saying that it has weakened a little bit. So now white folks are competing with people whose ability was always there. They just never had the same level of access before.
DEI.
Yeah, bro, that's a beautiful point he just brought up too. It's like the black quarterback effect, right? Back in the day, they just said, you know what, man, this quarterback position is a position where you have to be intelligent and have leadership skills. So they automatically discarded any black person that wanted to be a quarterback for the most part. But if you look at recent history, man, now black quarterbacks are in generous proportions in the NFL, and they putting up real numbers showing that it has always been a barrier, and not because we lack the ability. It's just you didn't want us in these positions, but now that we're in them, we're showing you that we're good enough to do them. In fact, we're better than most of y'all are at this. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, man, it's always been about competing, but they took away the ability for African Americans to compete. Oh, but nah, we on your ass now.
I is racist. And yes, this is the time to talk about it because the government, a lot of corporations, universities, academics, people all over the United States have dug into society and embedded this cancer everywhere. And you damn well know, if you've been a victim of it, you know what it feels like to have busted your ass and not gotten promoted or not gotten a job because you didn't meet some BS quota.
And now white men are being replaced in every country in which they reside. America was a majority white country for 400 years almost. And now it's not going to be in a matter of 10.
I asked you to show me where...
Hey, man, is that a bad thing? Honestly, let's be fucking for real. You know, America has been white for 400 years. Well, you know, it was designed to be that way so that y'all can have an advantage and oppress everyone else who come to this motherfucker. Y'all had to kill all the natives in order for it to be majority white, because if you kept the natives around, you would have never been a majority, but they were exterminated. And y'all did it on purpose, you know, so that y'all can have an unfair advantage.
Charlie Kirk was racist. All I got is the DEI comments, and he doesn't want a black pilot. Yeah, neither do I, and neither do hundreds of thousands of people. I don't want a woman pilot either. Don't blame us for this shit. You can blame the Democrats and all the fake ass bleeding hearts out there for having DEI, which is basically saying, hey, black people, minorities, we know you're too incapable, so all right, we'll hire you. We'll skip over people that are actually qualified. We need equality. Even if you're not qualified, yeah.
And if you grew up...
Bro, my problem with these dumbass people that come on here and say that shit is like they really don't have any brain cells, dog. Because what corporation is about to put their livelihood at stake by putting unqualified black people in pilot chairs in these planes? Plane go down. Do you know how many lawsuits are going to occur because of that when they start the investigation? Oh, so they put a black person in here just for the sake of having one. And as a consequence of that, multiple lives were ended. Do you know how much money that corporation would lose? So with that being said, that's not what's going on. They was trying to make sure that enough qualified pilots entered into the applicant pool so that they could put black pilots in these planes, not randoms. These were people who passed the test, who took the certifications, who got the licensing. It wasn't randoms. Come on now, y'all. To say that they think they're so smart, bro, they never use their brains.
Believing that the system was neutral, that shift probably feels unfair to you. It probably feels like rules have changed mid-game, even though the rules were never fair to begin with. You were just taught and conditioned to believe that they were. That's why you see racist outbursts becoming more public, why racist groups are organizing now more than ever, and why you see slogans like "No more white guilt" popping up left and right. It's all backlash. It's a response to the weakening of a system that a lot of them depended on. For generations, white people were promised stability. They were taught that if they followed the rules, then things would mostly work out for them. Respect was assumed, competence was assumed, and authority didn't have to be explained or defended. So when that default status starts to weaken, it doesn't feel like equality to them. It feels like loss, even when nothing tangible was taken away. Because privilege doesn't feel like privilege when it's normal. It feels like the default. And when the default changes, people interpret that as something that's being taken from them instead of something that's being corrected. And that emotional reaction, not logic, is what really fuels them. Another reason this conversation gets distorted is because people treat white dominance as if it's ancient and universal. It's not. For most of human history, European societies were not the global standard. African empires dominated trade and education. Asian civilizations led science, engineering, and systems of governance. So European dominance is a relatively short chapter in human history. And it was built through colonization, slavery, resource extraction, and military force. It didn't happen because they're just the greatest thing to ever walk the earth. So what's happening?
Hey, bro, he's talking that shit right now, dog. I was reading a book one time and they said that when the white man got to America, he didn't even have common sense enough to know that he shouldn't shit and piss in the same water he has to drink from. Yeah, bro, when them boys arrived in Virginia and all that kind of stuff, literally they was shitting and pissing inside of the water that they had to drink and fish out of. And the natives was looking at them like they was just barbaric. You get what I'm saying? Like, damn, this makes no sense. What are they doing? Don't they know that they got to drink that? Like, they just didn't have no common sense, man. And they almost died. A lot of them did die, but they almost was all wiped out. Had it not been for certain Native Americans pitying them, they would have... Boy, look, the shit is so crazy. They make it look like they just came over here and everything was A1 from day one. That is not the case, man. They did a lot of failing when they first came here.
Happening now isn't some unnatural collapse. It's rebalancing towards something much closer to historical reality. And rebalancing always feels unfair to the people that benefited most from the imbalance. So this is where white grievance enters the picture, right? Grievance isn't just about hardship, because hardship is something that everybody experiences at some point in their lives. People lose jobs, relationships fall apart, and things don't always go according to plan. That part is universal. Grievance forms when those hardships collide with expectations that were never questioned in the first place, and there's no framework to understand why that collision happened. Many white people were raised to believe that if they just did what they were supposed to, the system would eventually work out in their favor. And to a large extent, it has been that way. This country is set up for white people to succeed. They weren't necessarily promised that life would be perfect, but that effort would translate into stability, respect, and a sense of being on solid ground. And that expectation becomes part of how people see themselves and their place in the world, even if they never say it out loud. So when a system stops clearing the pathway like how it has before, the first instinct is never to interrogate the system itself. Most people don't start by questioning economic restructuring, policy decisions, or historical shifts in power, because a lot of times those explanations are complicated and emotionally unsatisfying in the moment. Instead, their frustrations look for something that's concrete, something that's visible. It looks for something that feels immediate and personal. And that's why the blame usually lands on black people. Not because we caused the problem, but because we're the most visible.
Why are you buying? How do you have money to buy all this bread?
Security, please. I need a security. Get away from me.
I'm just asking.
Lady just buying bread, minding her own business, and this racist piece of shit thinks that is his. You know what? Somebody said a lot of white people think God left them in charge, and this is the perfect example of that. Like, bro, leave that lady alone. For somebody to come over here and bat the piss out you, bro. Like, dog, I can't stand dudes like this. Weak ass dudes, man.
How can white people can't fill a shopping cart, but these come in our country?
Can somebody call me a security, please?
And they come in this country. These ones too. What are you guys doing? You gonna fill up a whole shopping cart?
Boy, I wish he'd have
Are you
came
gonna
to
fill
New
a whole
Orleans with this
shopping cart up?
bullshit.
Don't talk to me. Don't talk to me.
When they see new faces in workplaces or different voices in different social spaces, when people feel uncomfortable, they look for something that they can point to. Whatever feels new becomes the suspect, even if the real forces behind all of this are invisible. Because systems don't have faces or voices. You can't argue with them, and you can't confront them emotionally. But people, on the other hand, are visible. So resentment moves sideways instead of upward. It gets aimed at us instead of the economic and political systems that actually control the outcomes. And when that resentment gets fed stories about favoritism or special treatment, that's when it starts to harden. And at that point, it starts to feel personal. Equality feels like exclusion to them, and losing guaranteed status feels like discrimination. It turns into a story about how something was taken from them. That shit.
Hey, bro, he said something real important right there, bro. Y'all might have missed it.
Equality feels like exclusion to them, and losing guaranteed status feels like discrimination.
Losing guaranteed status feels like discrimination. So in other words, just because I don't get to be first in line anymore, just because I'm not the first choice anymore, I'm being discriminated against. Boy, this man XO be talking, dog.
It turns into a story about how something was taken from them. That shift is what turns frustration into grievance. Not just anger about struggling, but anger pointed towards a target that had nothing to do with any of it, even if it feels wrong. This is not the end of opportunity for white people. It's still a long way to go. It's just the safety net that's been under them has slightly been weakened. That's it. The systems that reduced competition for centuries are starting to weaken because they were never sustainable to begin with. What we're seeing now is not oppression replacing privilege. It's certainty being replaced with uncertainty. Equality doesn't promise anyone success. It just means that the race is real. And for the first time in American history, white people are finally getting a small taste of what that actually feels like.
Hey, man, that boy was cooking on this one. Let's get into some of these comments, man. White privilege doesn't mean your life wasn't hard. It means your race wasn't an obstacle. Ooh, that was a bar, bruh. When you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. Lord have mercy. A white person commented. Let's see what he's talking about, or her. As a white person, I've known that white privilege isn't that I've been given everything in life. I grew up poor. I struggled, but I've also benefited from white privilege because white privilege is what I don't have to go through. I don't get followed when I enter a store. I don't have people crossing the street whenever they see me. I don't have to worry about cops, at least for the color of my skin, just my sexuality. Oh. I don't have to deal with racism. That is what white privilege is. The fact that I can be ignorant to these issues, the fact that I don't have to think about these issues whenever I leave the house. If more white people like this existed, the world would be a better place. This is the type of white person who is cognizant of reality, and they are not afraid to face things that challenge what they was brought up on to believe. And other whites know this, but they deny the realities of white privilege existence, and they benefit from their skin color. I really can't stand when they prequate their struggles with poverty to racism. Racist rhetoric and behavior discrimination the black Americans experience in this country. Hey man, that man was cooking, dog. My white friend was the one who talked to the cops whenever necessary. She'd say, be quiet and let me use my white privilege. She a real one. That worked until she had biracial kids. Then her white privilege card was revoked. Damn. No lie. They locked her up for obstruction when they saw those black babies with her. Damn, that's tough. Guys, shout out to Exo Speaks. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I'm gonna get at y'all on the next one.